Hey, everybody, Dimitri Panos here, and welcome and thank you for joining us on yet another episode of KDM. Alongside me, my friend, invaluable co host. Hey, Kit, how are you? She's the K in
Good.
KDM.
And he's the
Yeah,
D
well,
and Dimitri.
I am the D. and yeah, today's episode should be big. It should be epic, and it should be filled with sand. Of course, I
And
am talking
worms.
about Dune.
I
Oh,
read a
Dune,
headline. Bigger, wormier, and way far out.
Wormier. Dune Part Two. Is what we will be talking about today. We have lots to talk about. We have lots to break down too. And before we get at it, I should mention that because there is so much to talk about this movie, it's going to be very spoilerific. So just telling you this on top, at the top of the show, very spoilerific. If you have either never read the books, have not seen part two, but you've seen part one, um, it would be, well, if you haven't read the books, you've seen part one, you should be fine. But for part two, it's integral, I think, to have the conversation about uh, diversions where changes were made from the book. And also, it should be known that this is, as far as Dune, that is the first novel in the original trilogy goes. There have been a couple of, there have been a couple of versions of this movie. The David Lynch version, 1984. Sci-Fi Channel did a miniseries, and there was Jablonski's Dune, which never made it to fruition, but it was turned into a fabulous documentary. Don't know if you saw it. So, um, hopefully, you have some semblance of the story of Dune, which we will talk about because this is Dune, Denis Villeneuve's rendition, let's call it, his crack at it. So yeah, why don't we get along with our reviews? I will go to, as I always defer, ladies first. Kit, you are quite the lady. What did you think of Dune Part Two?
Well, I a bit mixed on it. We kind of had a conversation about previously that I mean, honestly, visually, it is one of, if not one of the best cinematic experiences I've had in a long, long time. I mean, I guess their cinematic experience could be, um, delineated between, different kinds of cinematic experiences. Like Oppenheimer, we felt was, also a very, larger than life kind of film that, but also had, a really great sort of performances and story behind it. This visually was probably the most spectacular I've ever seen. I mean, I just he just amazingly creates these worlds without one iota of feeling like you're not actually really there. Like that this is somehow, I mean, it's computer generated, but you just can't feel it or see it. And it's just, you're on this planet. And yeah, the majority of the film does take place on Arrakis. So it's lots of sand. And I guess it's Indiana Jones who said, I hate sand.
No, that was Anakin Skywalker
Oh,
from Attack of the Clones. I
okay.
hate the sand.
I
Gets
hate the
everywhere.
sand.
Yeah, I hate the
Well, there's
sand.
a lot of sand in this.
Yes, there is.
I don't know where he shot. Where did he shoot this? Didn't he? Didn't he?
Well, let's take a look, shall we? I am going to be referring to my phone because I had some, I took some notes. But let's see. I'm on IMDb right now, and they usually have countries of origin. This says United States, Canada. That doesn't make sense.
I thought it was in
Oh, filming
Saudi Arabia.
locations: Budapest, Hungary, Hawaii, Rome, Jordan, Abu Dhabi, and
Abu Dhabi, yeah.
United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, so I thought, yeah,
So
in the Middle East.
also the Carino household is Alta Vito, Treviso, Italy. Exteriors.
Yeah, I'm
I
at
mean,
the
I don't know
desert
where any
part.
of this is. Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
mostly
I
the
mean,
Middle
it
East,
was
yeah.
all over. It was all over. So
Well, I mean, he obviously used some CG for some of the other outer worlds, but the most of the sand stuff was real. I mean, I was pretty just wowed by the visuals, and this is what Denis Villeneuve, who is a director I admire. I do admire him, and he's a director that I've liked a lot. I
mhm.
think you know he in the past has directed things that other people have written, which I think is maybe a good thing. But clearly he has an amazing way of visualizing things. I kind of put him up there with a James Cameron, who's in a similar situation where I think James Cameron also likes to concentrate more on visuals than he does on actual dialogue and story. So,
I would
but
disagree on that, but go ahead. But that's
no,
okay. We're going to talk about that.
horrible.
We're going to talk about that one specific word that you brought up a little bit later on in the show.
Yes.
Dialogue. Remember it.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, so visually I was just completely astounded. Story wise, I still was in it. I mean, I told this to you after I saw the first Dune, I kind of felt the same way walking away from it, which was visually amazing, but story was a little confusing to me. Now, of course, I've never read the trilogy, I've never read the books, so I don't have that source material to take from, and I've only seen bits and pieces of that 1984 version of it. Um, but it is a sci-fi-ish kind of situation, and it's Game of Thrones in a way, where you've got warring factions and families, and who's going to control what. And I guess the main concern is over this mineral or whatever, spice, which is the lifeblood of this universe, apparently. I still quite, maybe you can explain when I'm done. You can explain to me what spice actually is. But anyway, so spice is mostly on this one planet, Arachnis. So it has been sort of a tool, or a piece that different families and warring factions are fighting it for, basically, to control this planet. Now, the fact is that we have these indigenous people, the Fremen, who have grown up in this environment, and so know how to navigate it the best, and therefore make very good rebels, so to speak, against these other type of families and fiefdoms and empires and whatnot, to take control of their planet. So there's that. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I'm in that. And so after I watched the first one, I was like, okay, I get it. So we kind of were telling the backstory of Paul. With how do you pronounce the last name?
Paul Atreides.
Atreides. Thank you. Played by
Or
Timothy Chalamet.
Atreides.
Atreides.
Yeah.
The family that comes to Arachnis to take over, and they're dictated to go there. Actually, they're sent there. They're not necessarily wanting to go there, but they are sent there by their emperor to take control of the spice production. And then they are violently attacked and almost annihilated by the Harkonnens, who
Harkonnens. Mm-hmm.
are another family type, and they are also secretly controlled by the emperor as well, and it was all set up, blah blah blah. So you got all of that. That was very
Blah,
interesting,
blah, blah.
establishing those characters, especially Timothy's Timmy. I'm just going to call him Timmy. Timmy's Paul, and
Timmy.
then Rebecca Ferguson's Lady Jessica, who plays his mother, who is a Bene Gesserit. I think I said that right.
Yes, you did.
So, and she's kind of I guess a shaman slash witch slash, I don't know, this kind of type of, and it's all women. It's a sisterhood, who have these abilities to have mind control, and telepathy, and that kind of thing. So,
And also foresee things from
yeah,
past to future. Yeah.
yeah. So that yeah,
They're spiritual advisors. instead of calling them
prophesizing.
witches,
But as we come to know now, and after part two, is that they are actually also part of the political landscape, and they manipulate for their advantage. So all of that, I'm all in it. I got it. And then, you get to the desert and they're stranded in the desert, Paul and Lady Jessica, after this big attack, which was pretty spectacular to watch. And then they meet with the Fremen, and then Paul has had these sort of prophesizing dreams that he's going to meet this young Fremen woman, Shani, played by Zendaya, and that they're going to fall in love and that kind of stuff. So he prophesies that. So we literally take from that to start Dune 2. Now, like I said, when I walked out of Dune 1, I was like, okay, yeah, all right, I'm okay. It's not horrible. I mean, the story wasn't the best, but I was in the world. He brought me in, and I was okay with it. I watched it again and actually liked it a little bit more, which is interesting. That doesn't usually happen, but sometimes it does happen. So I feel like it's kind of something I must absorb, because there's a lot to take in, and I'm sure the book was very dense as well. But there's a lot of political machinations and just all of it, trying to figure out who's who and what are they trying to do and who's allied with who and that thing. So Dune 2 kind of just sees his rise and Paul's rise. And the thing is that he has been either through his own, visions, and also the Fremen believe in a Messiah type, which is, an age old story, right? White, savior. That's what kind of how people have been describing it. But a Messiah type who comes in, who's going to lead them to greener pastures, so to speak.
You have no idea, but go ahead. You're more right than you know.
But Paul is, in this, he is conflicted by that kind of a role. He doesn't really want it. He feels for the Fremen. He understands their plight, and he joins it and quickly becomes, a big part of their world. And is a great fighter. Falls like Channing, and he begin a relationship. And he keeps seeing the future, and he keeps seeing that it's not a good future, because if he becomes who he's supposed to become, this, the one, it's not going to end well for people. So he doesn't want that. And I kind of liked that conflict that went on in that character. Now it kind of goes along slowly, again, a little slowly. The desert, okay, we get it. There's worms. It's desert. I thought it was kind of cool how they got water out of people. Interesting to me.
They suck the water out of people? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was fascinating. And that they have this giant reservoir of water that they put all their,
They
dead
stockpiled,
souls.
and that's
Dead souls. Yeah.
That nobody knows about. Well, no. But they have more than that. Yeah. Like it was alluded to in the movie. It was alluded to, but yes, they have stockpiles of water.
I found that fascinating. I mean, I was fascinated by the world that they live in and how they navigated it. From the little desert mouse thing who's small but powerful in its own world, and and the water and how they get water, and how you don't waste water, like you don't cry because that's wasting your water. And I mean, all of that was fascinating to me, actually. I thought that it went on a little too long. But then you have intercuts, Paul, coming of age kind of thing, or coming of whatever it is, to the Harkonnens and the and the badness of them. And we introduce I won't be able to pronounce this character's name, but Austin Butler's character is called
Fade Rotha.
There you go.
Fade Rotha, who's a nephew to the Baron.
Right, who's so gross. Yeah. Just gross. It's like Jabba the Hutt.
He's not even close to being portrayed the way but
I mean, he's just gross. He's Jabba the Hutt. So yeah, there's that. That part of it, that whole side of it, reminded me a lot of like Mad Max. Reminded me a lot of post-apocalyptic George Miller kind of thing. Even though we're talking about.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's some spectacular scenes in that world as well. And Austin Butler, I thought, was great as the villain. Just the way he looked. I mean, he didn't have to say anything, really. He just didn't. He just looked so awful. And mean and white. Anyway, it all comes together. Finally get the good and the bad together, so to speak, in one sort of climactic battle scenes, which I also appreciated not being too overly done, like some Marvel movies that we know of. I feel like those climactic battle scenes just can go on forever. And it's okay, but I feel like Denis, he placed these big battle sequences very well in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of ends on a note that seems like it's going to keep going. Like there's going to be a third one. Because some of the characters were introduced very briefly, including Florence Pugh. She's new to this one. She plays Princess
Urlan. Yep,
Ulan,
yep. She's the daughter to Emperor
the
Shaddam
Emperor,
the Fourth, I believe it is.
played by Christopher
Yep.
Walken. We love to see
Mm-hmm.
Chris. He was, yeah, people,
Okay.
but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he was what he was. And then yeah, and then I liked Charlotte Rampling's too. She plays like the sort of the more powerful
Yeah,
Bene
she is
Gesserit.
the Bene Gesserit who oversees the Emperor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So they all have their own like Bene Gesserit. They call them Reverend
The,
Mothers,
the
I
the
guess.
Bene
But
Gesserit, the Reverend Mother,
yeah, yeah.
who helps
So
spiritually guide them. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. But she's very,
And
she's got a lot of,
she's said to be
she
very
has
powerful, and
a lot of
and
agendas.
yes, yeah.
And Lady
So you brought
Jessica's
it
at
up
odds with
actually.
her.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
well, they've tried to Charlotte Rampling, as you mentioned earlier. I'm only reiterating and pointing out that yes, they are equally as responsible for the events that are taking place, because it's all like this huge big game of chess, and the planets are the pieces, the pawns, the
right.
rooks, the knights, the kings and
And the
queens.
spice is the prize. And spice is the
And
prize.
yeah, he who controls the spice controls the universe.
Yeah, powerful. All right,
Hmm.
so like I said, I feel a little bit mixed about the film overall. Visually, just uncomparable, but narratively, hit or miss for me. And I know you're going to go more into this, and I can throw in my 2 cents. But I thought Timothy actually did a great job. And I
Great.
think
Oh, okay.
I do. I like him. I'm sorry, I do. I
I
find him
know. You
appealing,
don't apologize for liking
and
him.
yeah, I find him appealing, and I feel like he's, that kind of a character is like a ingenue in a theater production, who has a thankless job of playing, someone that way. He had kind of a thankless job to play this part, but I felt his conflict. I felt he, didn't really want to be who they wanted him to be. But then he becomes that, and then he takes it, then he owns it. I don't know. I thought he did a nice job. Zendaya, I think she's a little wasted in this, and to be honest with you, but because she really is sort of a one note type character. The chemistry between the two of them, you didn't go into this. I thought was okay, because I felt like the characters themselves lended to what they were. He was definitely more hard on the sleeve, emotional type of guy. And she's like, no, I'm a Fremen. Give me a break. I don't believe in faith. I don't believe in all of this bullshit that you keep talking about, that kind of thing. So actually, Javier Bardem is maybe my favorite character, because he actually brought some laughs. Just the way he was.
Yeah,
In my screening, we
I want
laughed a
to
few
talk
times.
about that too, because I want to talk about specific at some point. I want to talk about specifically where the laughs came from, because I had a similar situation, and I want to find out if we shared like a similar, because there was one particular moment in the movie in which garnered laughs, and I kind of was like, why? But anyways,
Yeah,
but you're right. Yeah.
yeah,
He was good too. I actually think he's kind of the
yeah.
standout
He was
of the
kind of.
movie.
Yeah.
Still
And
good.
Austin Butler, to be honest with you. I thought Austin Butler was also a standout.
He's no Sting. I
Huh?
will say that.
Oh,
He's
was
no
Sting better?
Sting.
Was Sting better?
I believe so. He was more the part. in the book where I think
Oh,
Austin
okay.
played him a little bit creepier.
Right, right. Well, I kind of I sort of appreciated the creepiness, so I was in
Thank
it.
God
I
he
was in
ditched
it.
the Elvis accent too, right?
Poor guy. You heard that he
Yeah,
had to
I did.
hire a vocal cord coach to get him back to his normal
I mean, come
voice.
on.
Poor guy. Just couldn't do it. He still sounds a little, I mean, he has that natural deep Elvis voice. He
Timber.
just does.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's why he played that part so effectively. But yeah, I mean, he had to get back to his normal self. So, but anyway, he did that with Masters of the Air, which I don't know if you've had a chance to see, but that's when he had to get out of his
Mhm.
personality. But so I overall, it was an epic film worth seeing and worth
Mhm.
seeing on the big screen. And I am curious to see if I watch it again, like I did the first one, if I'll pick up more things and like it more, or if I'll still think it's, or even think it's worse. So,
Interesting.
um, yeah. So for me,
Okay.
yes, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the masterpiece of all time. No, but which some people have
Yes.
been calling it. But no, I don't feel that way. But I do feel enough of it is worth watching. And I do
Right.
feel Villeneuve is a director that, can do that kind of stuff. So
I
all right,
I agree. I
take it over,
agree. Now look,
Dimitri.
I just think I agree with much of what you said. And one can't deny that Dune Part 2 is, I mean, it literally is an astonishing visual vista. I mean, you cannot deny that. And it's, I believe, it grander than Part 1.
Yes. Oh
It's a
yes.
magnificent movie spectacle. You brought up Oppenheimer, and I think any movie of last year would be very hard pressed to look bigger and better than Oppenheimer did. And I believe that Dune 2 is this year's, from a visual standpoint,
Yes.
it's this year's Oppenheimer. Now, also, I will say this before I get into like some criticism, but I will say this about Mr. Denis Villeneuve is that he is an amazing set piece director, okay? As opposed to being a great action director. I believe he is an amazing set piece director. What do I mean by that? And why am I differentiating? Because a lot of people conflate set piece with action as an
Right.
action director. And there are action sequences in movies that you can call a set piece for sure. But according to Merriam Webster, a set piece is a composition, as in literature, art, or music. This is an art form, film, movies. It's executed in a fixed or ideal form, often with studied artistry and brilliant effect. It's a scene, depiction, speech, or event that is obviously designed to have an imposing effect. Now, if you see this movie in IMAX, I guarantee you will have a feeling of an imposing effect.
Oh yeah.
And this is what he does. I think, The Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, Dune Part 1, he is able to
Even
capture
Sicario.
these large, sure, yes, Sicario. We would also have to give Greg Fraser to his cinematographer. Together, these they are able to compose. I saw this movie in IMAX. And if you are to see it again, kid, I would highly recommend trying to find or trying to see it in IMAX. And
I think it was
good
an
Lord,
IMAX. I saw it. I can't remember. Okay, I have
yeah, I
to.
mean, I it it just was, I mean, breathtaking.
Yeah, it
And
was. And
it
my chair vibrated and my whole
yes,
being vibrated when
mine did as
when the big,
well.
yeah, yeah,
And there
yeah.
are certain scenes that I can point out. There were scenes where three worms came up out of the sand. Three,
Oh, those worms were.
not one, but
Yep.
three, and it was amazing. The riding of the sandworms, the battles that you mentioned. The opening of the movie has an incredible scene as they're walking through the desert, and
Yeah.
um, uh, uh, the Harkonnen soldier, the Sadukar, as they're called. They're
Right.
hiding from them, and there's this scene where they almost like float up. I mean, it again to watch this on IMAX, I was stunned. Like literally, it is definitely this year's, to me, Oppenheimer. Now,
Right.
with all of that said, its narrative, I mean, it's as bloated as Baron Harkonnen, I believe. And also, Denis Villeneuve and his co-writer, I have a hard time pronouncing this gentleman's name, but it's John Spates, I
Okay.
believe.
Hmm.
Okay. They make some choices. They make some choices. And by choices, I'm going to say they make some changes that I was quite frankly, I'm still kind of trying to figure out why. And I'm sort of confounded. I can't wrap my head around it. And when I mean changes, they made like they went off the page, like literally off the page to make this their own. You and I did have a lovely conversation a little bit earlier about adapting from page to screen, and I think we learn at a young age that movies are as faithful as they can be, but there have to be some changes. And this goes as far back to The Wizard of Oz and even
Yeah.
beyond,
Yeah.
even farther back. But when we look at movies and when we look at the Wizard of Oz, The Big Sleep, The Godfather, The Exorcist,
Gone with
Jaws,
the wind.
uh, Gone with the Wind, Dune, like I think we come to expect changes, and how good or how bad those changes are. And if you've read the book and you're a fan of the book, if you are a book loyalist, and there are many people who will read the book and that is their Bible, and they don't want it necessarily changed so drastically. And sometimes the most minute change, if they see it in a movie, they go, ugh, ugh. Well, this one, folks, I mean, just fair warning, look out, because there are there are at least two changes that I couldn't figure out. And I didn't know why, because according to the press notes, according to everything, all of these movies come from one book, that book being the first in the original trilogy, Dune. Not Dune Messiah, not the Children of Dune. It is Dune. And I can tell you there are events that happen in this movie, character events that never have that they completely change from the book. So
And
when
not to the better, in your opinion.
in my opinion, I can't figure out why they did it. And this may be sacrilege to people. Look, I find Denis Villeneuve's parts one and part two, they are very faithful in certain aspects, but I will go further in saying it's about as faithful to the novel as David Lynch's 1984 version is faithful to the novel. And I'm going to take it a step further to say David Lynch's version, look, albeit that version, 1984's version, is not a perfect movie by any means. Made in 1984, it's not, you don't think of David Lynch being a very science fiction special effects director, but for what he had back in 1983 making this movie, they made the practical effects work. I'm
Yeah.
not going to compare it to Denis Villeneuve's, and obviously his Dunes look far more epic, but I say that David Lynch, at least, regardless of its differences in narrative, it's still kept to the main plot points. Um, I was just, I'm still like trying to figure out why. Well, what was it? And to me, like, Could it be ego? Like it seemed a little bit like there was a bit of hubris. It's like I'm gonna make this my own, and I'm putting my stamp on it. The Frank Herbert, everybody else be damned. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do this over creative artistry. And I also think too that the Dune story, the one book, when it first when we first heard that he was going to be doing Dune, there was, great anticipation because he is, as you said, I mean, he's a celebrated
Yeah.
director, but it was only supposed to be two movies.
Mm.
Only two. Only two. And then he comes out, yeah, I will only do three. Like, wait, what? Wait, what do you mean three? No, just wrap this. Like, no, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm tired. Like, that's like making The Hobbit into three movies.
Right.
So, yeah, it's bloated. And I don't understand the changes that happen. And again, being a person who reads, and what I loved about our conversation earlier is, you didn't read these books, but you were an avid reader from a teenager on up, and you got hooked into Stephen King. So if anybody knows about the changes or adaptations from book to screen, it would be you as well,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It's not like there haven't been a lot of Stephen King movies. And some of those adaptations.
And they haven't gotten them all right. That's for damn sure. But
Yeah, just talk to Stephen
the
King
biggest
himself.
one is The Shining. I think that's the
The
one that
Shining.
everyone points to as being, you know,
Even Stephen
completely,
King.
yeah, didn't like it. And that's
No,
okay. But here's the thing
and
about
I
that.
didn't find it.
I liked the movie for what it was. You know what I mean? I thought Kubrick's vision was just as creepy and scary as the book was. But, the changes he made, I wasn't necessarily happy with. But at the same time, I still appreciated the film. So for me, it
But
didn't.
Kubrick didn't change necessarily. He kept the main why
Kind
they
of.
go to the Overlook, kind
Yes,
of,
yes.
right. Why do they go to the Overlook? Why
I
to
just,
stay out of this room?
I missed the hedge animals. The maze thing was stupid.
Yes,
I missed the hedge animals.
sure, sure. I with no argument. Sure, but again, it's what I'm getting at is that there are, like, the hedge animals is one thing, but he didn't necessarily. I mean, going through the maze and whatnot, the end was still kind of the end. And Stephen King, you could see if you'd never read the book, and you'd only seen the movie,
Right.
you could still get into Doctor Sleep,
Yes.
right? In
Oh,
which
yeah.
Stephen, right? So this movie doesn't even play into the sequels of the book because he has a character do something that the character never does in the book.
Okay, so what is it? Tell me.
And
I'm
so
dying to know.
so this is where I find my criticism. So let's talk about, because again, I took notes. I was out my backyard last night having some bourbon and a cigar, just going out. So here are the major changes, and I'm going to try to denote some things, and because David Lynch and company, they too omitted some stuff or added some things here. But so in the book and in even in David Lynch's movie, so what I was struggling with here is, yeah, Paul Atreides is being prophesized to be this Messiah, but I'm like, well, what is he doing to earn this? Like, what's going on here? Because I know in the book and in David Lynch's novel, he does teach the Fremen. He and Jessica teach the Fremen how to fight using the weirding way. It's almost like it's not fully using the voice in which
Oh,
but they they definitely give an advantage to the Fremen
oh,
and
okay.
Paul and Jessica, but Paul leads that way that's not in this movie at all. Okay. Um, another now the other thing that had like Denis Villeneuve in the first movie, the Harkonnens are vile people. They're nasty, nasty people. In this movie, they're pushovers. They don't even really factor in. Baron Harkonnen doesn't really do much.
Mhm.
Actually, a lot of the cast is, to me, they were cast aside, including Lady Jessica, but especially the Harkonnens. Batista, who's Robin the Beast, who is so beastly and strong, and he was a formidable force in this movie. He's like I mean,
Yeah,
he's so weak.
inept. Yeah, he's very inept.
And
Yeah.
and here inept and let's talk the character kind of, I don't want to say he's inept, but he is tasked with running Arrakis and getting spice, and he is thwarted by this Muad'Dib who doesn't know who he is, and
Right.
Muad'Dib with the Fremen are like they are stopping spice from being created and exported, but he's so weak. There's this big fight that happens towards the end of this movie where he's going to go up against Gurney Halleck, as played by um,
Josh
Brolin.
Brolin. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's over in a flash. I was like,
Yeah.
really? Like this? Wow. I'm like, wow. I'm like, wow. They did not do this character justice. But all right. So, but to me, the biggest two of the biggest things are, um, so Lady Jessica becomes the Reverend Mother to the Fremen. She does this by drinking this thing called the water of life, which is derived from drowning a baby sandworm. It is a very poisonous thing. No men have ever done this before, but in order to become a Reverend Mother, you must drink this poison, survive, and it'll give you all the memories. It's almost like being a Trill from Star Trek. When you take
Right.
over that person, you gain all their experience and memories, and this is what happens. Well, she happens to be pregnant. She has a little idea in her. And when Jessica drinks the water of life, Elia too absorbs this, and she gains those same let's call them omniscient powers
Right.
that an adult Reverend Mother has. It's a main part of the book. It's also mentioned in the David Lynch movie, but what doesn't happen here is Ilea is born. Ilea is born, and when she is born, it's instantly known that she's not your ordinary baby. Oh no, because she is being born with all of this knowledge and all of this power.
Right.
So her looks betray who she is now. Again, big spoiler at the end of this movie. Now, okay, well, it's not a change. It's actually in the book, and Denis Villeneuve brings it up here. Jessica is from the Harkonnen bloodline. That is in the book. She is the Baron's daughter. How neither of them know, and her being a Bene Gesserit, how she can't figure that out, I got no idea. However, it is in the book, well, in the movie, is Paul Atreides who ends up killing Baron Harkonnen. That was my head scratcher. A, Ilea is born, doesn't happen in this movie. B, it is Ilea who kills the Baron with a
Oh,
Gom Jabbar. She
I
is the
see.
one, and she is the one that it ends up in the palace at the end where the Emperor is, and she is the one. She knows of the deceit of the Harkonnens. She knows of the deceit of it's a great part. It's a really great part. She knows of the deceit of the Emperor, and she's like, "My brother's coming. Hear that? My brother is coming for you, Baron." And the major Reverend Mother is like, she's known as the Abomination
Mm.
because she shouldn't have these powers as a child. And they go to kill her. And a little Ilea in the movie, in David Lynch's movie, calls the Baron over. And the Baron's a little bit off put, but she sticks him with the gum jabbar.
Mhm.
Similar happens in the book. Why they made this change, I do not know. Uh, then Paul shows up. He has the fight with Fade, and it's that they didn't change at all. I
That
don't
was
know,
a good fight.
that it was again. It's Sting played it more a little like he was more energetic and he was more taunting. In the book, he was a very taunting thing. If you ever see any clips of the 1984 movie, Sting's jumping around and he's like, I will kill you. And he too, like the Fade here, Austin Butler, he makes mention of Chani. He goes, is this your
Hmm.
pet? He goes, oh, I'm going to take care of your pet, blah, blah, blah. So it is a good fight. But at the end, it's just very, very weird. Like, did Denis Villeneuve and Spate, did they say, well, this is a revenge story and it makes more sense to have our Paul Atreides kill him, where Paul is always very reluctant to kill in the first place. He doesn't want, to your point earlier, he doesn't want the responsibility.
Hmm.
One cool thing that happened in Denis Villeneuve's version of Dune Part One is that fight with Jairus or Janus.
Janice,
Janus.
yeah.
Yeah.
Janice, uh-huh.
Dr. Mbenga from Strange New
Yes.
Worlds. Just had to throw that in there. He's so
Yep.
great. He didn't want to kill him, and it's even said in the movie. Um, Paul Atreides is a reluctant hero. He's trapped by prophecy. How does he escape this trap? Um, and I just wonder now. Now he kills, and I know if you're just watching the movies and you haven't read the book, it kind of makes sense. But
Right.
however, you know, there are bigger things for Aaliyah. You mentioned it. You are correct. The actress
So
who they kept,
Anya Taylor-Joy, yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy. Oh my God, perfect to play the older Aaliyah. Um, yeah, I mean, she becomes a formidable force who really does try to guide Paul. Because she sees things. She's actually
Yeah.
probably one of the most powerful Bene Gesserit. So I just don't know why they made that change.
I
Um,
guess Danae didn't want to go with the kid route, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. You're right.
I don't know. I don't know. Now, there's something that neither the Lynch movie or this movie, and I thought this movie was going to do this, to be honest, because in ways, the news version is faithful. Um, Something that you don't know if you've read the books, Paul and Shani have more than just a love affair. They actually have a son.
Oh, okay.
They have a son. They have a son. They name it Leto, and the son. And again, there's years that transpire on Arrakis,
Right.
and the son ends up getting killed in a Harkonnen raid. So
Right.
that doesn't happen. And look, again, I'll just say it just to reiterate the 1984 version, albeit not perfect, and David Lynch even admits not perfect. There is a director's cut which David Lynch never approved, hence it went out as Alan Smithy. But when you watch it, there are key plot points. There is a character, Thufir Hawat, who's a mentat to the Atreides, who gets captured by the Harkonnens. Like that character doesn't even exist. So
Well, wait. Who are the
Villeneuve
guys? Who are the guys he was fighting in that pit?
in the
I
pit, what
thought
pit?
in this film when Austin Butler's character is fighting those three Atreides people. Who are those people?
Oh, that's that
I
that
think
that
that one
that
guy must have
is
been him. No?
no.
Oh,
No, because you're talking about in the big arena, the
yeah,
gladiatorial thing.
yeah.
Again, it didn't happen that way in the book. They actually um in the book does fight somebody from the Atreides, and he only wins the fight because Thufir Hawat, who was again the Atreides Mentat, captured, and he's captured, reprogrammed. He tells Fade how to best this thing. Also, it's in neither of the movies, but it's in the book. Fade does try to kill the Baron, and the Baron, like, obviously thwarts the attempt, and that's where he makes the deal with Fade and says, "Hey, listen, kid, listen, nephew, um, you know, play nice. I will make you emperor." And so that's how Fade gets into the fold. And something similar well, Fade
it's
doesn't
kind of the
try to
opposite.
kill him, it's kind of the opposite.
Right.
So that change is fine. Like, it's just, again, I don't understand the end. You don't have Aaliyah born,
Well,
and
I mean,
the
it's
abomination,
well,
and
she's probably born because you can tell what's her face isn't pregnant anymore. So she's been born, but she's just not in the picture yet. And I think if I'm reading this correctly, at the end of this film, if he is going to do a third one, then Anya Taylor-Joy, they'll just skip the childhood part of her and then just make her the adult. Because at the end of the film, Paul goes
maybe.
up to fight all the different houses who don't want him to be the emperor. So he's got to fight his way through that. And Chani is left on the surface, and she's gonna hitch a ride with a worm, get the fuck out, and then
Yeah, and that
and then we
all
move on.
happens. That kind of all happens in the book, with the exception that Chani is a little bit more like, Paul tells her, he goes, "Look, I'm doing this for political reasons, but you're always going to be by my side. She's always going to know, and you're the only one that I love." Where instead it comes off of, "You bastard, like, what do you
Yeah.
like, what, you just tell me you love me, and then you say, hey, I'll take your hint,
Well, I mean, I
I'll
think
take the princess's dog."
that was kind of played like that in this film.
No, but
She's like, "What?
it wasn't played like that in the book, and it
Oh,
didn't happen in David Lynch's movie. Again, another thing that I have to throw back to is in 1984, when they were making a movie, period, whether it's Dune or whatever, you didn't get a sequel unless your one movie
right,
was a success.
right,
So David Lynch he didn't leave his movie open ended. Of course, there is source material which you could make further sequels. The movie ended up being a huge flop, and it cost Universal a lot of money to
yes,
do. And many have said that you can't make a movie out of Dune, because the book,
one movie, yeah,
as you've noticed, is dense.
yeah,
The movie is just dense. The book is, believe it or not, denser, but it makes for
of
great
course,
science fiction. And I
yeah,
think Denis Villeneuve has done. I mean, he gets an A for effort, because to the layman, as you said, watching the first movie, you were pulled into the world, right?
yeah.
You kind of understood. You got what was going on. So I just wish it were two movies. Take the one book, make it into
Well,
two movies, have it end.
I have a feeling he'll be able to make a third one because it's already making money. So I have a
Oh,
feeling
oh
that
yeah. I mean,
this will
there'll be
be
a
a
third one.
bigger box office, and he'll make the third one. And then maybe after the third one, you could revisit it all and say, okay. So, I mean, as disappointing as it was to you and how weird it was narratively that he cut out the young sister,
Well,
I
he
feel
cuts
like
out the
he
young sister,
probably
and he has
thought of it,
Paul.
and Paul
And he
killed
has
her.
Paul killing the
I thought it
Harkonnen.
was pretty effective though. Knowing that I didn't know the movie,
Right.
watching that, I was like, oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
go get him. Go get him.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from a cinematic perspective, but again, it, even David Lynch didn't stray away from that plot point.
Yeah.
It was just kind of weird to me, and it it's so weird because at this point of the Dune book, that part of the story of Dune is over. I mean, it's pretty much over at that point, because
Right.
Paul becomes he fulfills the prophecy in a
Yes.
sense. He becomes the leader. I'm not going to say Messiah just yet. Aaliyah's born. She's the big abomination.
Right.
Jessica did a big no-no, and that was also mentioned in the David Lynch. She did a big no-no by having Paul. Paul shouldn't have been
Right.
born. So that's all well and done. Uh, but that's pretty much where the Dune book ends. And I don't, part three would be the next book, sort of, kind of. And they're not calling it the next book. I guess they're going to be calling it Dune Part Three.
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with Dune. And since they've radically, and I say that they've changed the ending, but that's pretty much has wrapped up the storylines
Right.
and Paul's journey
Right.
as well.
Right.
With with a little bit of the exception of Chani and such. But it ends after that, after the killing of Fade, it kind of ends. Um, David Lynch's movie doesn't go into the whole Princess Orlan,
Right.
I'll
Thing.
take
Yeah.
her hand so he could be the emperor, basically.
Right. Right.
So,
But
yeah, it's
anyway, I
just very,
mean,
very weird. It's
so
very weird.
we're getting a little long in the
Yeah,
tooth here. So let's
I get it. It's a
let's
long
give our
movie. There's
final.
a lot to
I
unpack.
know. Well, and you read the
That's
book, and
and
I'm
and it,
fascinated with what you said, though. I'm fascinated with what you said. Um, Knowing that I didn't know that, so it didn't take away from me as much as it did for you,
right.
and that's a problem. But I
Uh,
feel like probably a majority of the people seeing this probably haven't read the book, so they're not going to really know the difference. But maybe not.
I'm
I
not
don't
gonna.
know. Maybe not.
I can't
Maybe not.
disagree with you. I don't know,
Yeah.
but Dune has its following. I know this why, not because of these movies or whatever, but when I was in high school, I hung out with
Yeah.
with geek science fiction friends, and they were the ones that told me, Dimitri, have you read this book? No, I said, Dune. You've not read Dune? Like you've read? They go,
Yeah.
no,
No,
you've got to read Dune.
my oldest sister was a big sci-fi fan. She loved all of that. So she had
She
Dune, and
she and she read them. Okay, so
oh yeah,
I was like, oh, okay. So that's when I got into Dune, and then I was a big Police fan. Huge fan of
yeah,
the Police and Sting. I knew it was going to be in this movie, and blah blah blah. So a lot of people have read Dune, and it was a great line regarding the Gom Jabbar. Many have tried, many have died. So there were lots of tries at the adaptation. Denis Villeneuve is by far the most successful. So
yeah.
yes, but if you want to
Well,
wrap, we can give what
I'm
are you giving it?
definitely. I mean, I would give it a strong. Maybe okay. I might have to delineate between the two. I mean, I would say it's a 5 for visuals, but maybe a
Oh,
three and
okay.
but
You
that
know,
three and a half for the story. So I guess the medium with that would be like a 4. For me, I think between. I mean, there were the story itself just dragged a bit, and I think you're right. If they wanted to make just 2 movies, they could have cut that a lot of that desert off. Just cut that up and just have them ride a sandstorm, a sandworm, and boom, we're out. And then we could
did
have
you
maybe.
did you did you find the pacing very similar? I found the pacing very similar to the first movie, to his
Yes,
first movie.
yes, that's what
He
I'm
he
saying.
structured it very similarly,
Yes,
I thought.
yes, and I feel
Yeah.
that after the first one, I felt the same way, which is story was, you know,
Mhm.
we can we get it going here, kind of thing. And then, but knowing that there was going to be a part 2, the ending didn't necessarily bother me as much as this one's like, are
Right.
we going to get a third one? Because if we aren't going to get a third one, then that ending sucked. I
Right.
want to see what ends up happening. And I think Timothy and Florence Pugh plays the princess. I think they're gonna have a little more chemistry. They're gonna have a little more chemistry.
Oh, I didn't talk about their chemistry. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean
it's okay.
Timothy Chalamet. I felt the part Zendaya and Chalamet were fine together. I didn't. I don't see too much chemistry between the two when they're together. Apart,
But
fine. Together, eh.
that's
So,
fair.
so
It's fair.
ultimately, though, are you giving it a 4 or
Yeah, I'm
what are you
giving it
giving?
a 4. I'm giving it a
Okay,
4.
fair. Okay, fair enough. If you were to delineate,
Yeah.
yes, I 100% agree with you from a visualistic standpoint. I do think that this is the Oppenheimer of 2024, and we're getting it in March. I mean, I know that we're going to have other movies like Wicked and things like that, and we'll
Right.
have movies like Twisters and stuff that'll look fantastic in IMAX, but no movie, I think, is going to look as good as what we experienced.
Yep.
I just don't. It'll
Yep.
be very hard unless Dune 3 comes out at the end of the year,
I think
which
he's
I
exhausted.
think so.
I think he needs to take a little bit of that.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, what Denis Villeneuve has proven to me is he's a master magician. He dazzles you. And while he's dazzling you, like you're looking here and you're not seeing the sleight of hand. That's the
Yeah.
actual trick over here.
Right.
And the sleight of hand is the story.
Yeah.
And that I give the movie a 3. It's okay. For those who've sat through this and you haven't seen the movie, well, sorry, it's been spoiled. You were warned. See it in IMAX. I mean,
Yeah.
if I were to see it again, the only way I would see this movie again is to watch it again in IMAX.
Yeah.
I felt as if I were in a sandstorm or watching these worms. Like what I
Or
felt
those
it
giant
all.
spice machines that take up the spice. Ugh.
Wow.
It's just,
Yes.
and
But
you're like this.
everything, but even from that into the siege with the room, like
Yes.
I
Yes.
felt as if I was
Yes.
almost having a 360 view with just one
Yes.
screen.
Yes.
And it's beautiful. It
Yeah.
really is the movie going experience. And it's what makes it so magical and
Yeah.
powerful because Denis Villeneuve and company transported us
Yes.
to this world, to this universe in grand style and form. And I just don't think any other movie that I see this year
Yeah.
is
It's going to
going to
top
look
that.
like
No, it's
no,
not going to top it.
no,
Mm-mm.
no.
No. So look for it for a lot of Oscar nominations in that regard.
And
So we'll
even
see.
music, I think Hans Zimmer's
Oh yeah.
score, which also lends to what I was talking about set piece before. I think his score is even better in this movie than it was in part one.
Yeah.
There were parts of it that were sublime and exquisite, and he played up, and it wasn't overly bombastic.
Right. Right.
It really
Yeah. It was
was
all good.
good.
Yeah.
So all the
Yep.
tech specs are amazing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Javier
So
Bardem.
yes, and Javier Bardem.
So, and it's always a pleasure. Kit,
Oh,
thank you
so
so
fun.
much. I don't know what
So
our next
fun.
movie. Yeah, I don't know what our next movie is going to be.
I'm gonna
I
be
don't know
out
if
a
it'll be as
little bit, but
exciting as this. What
no.
do we have? Kung Fu Panda
I'm
54 or
not.
something?
I'm off next
Yeah,
week, so we'll pick another guy. I'm sure that's coming up. That we'll have some good ones coming up, but because we're starting to get
yeah.
towards the good stuff.
This is our first big movie
Yeah.
of the year, and I think
Yep.
box office will prove that. But
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk about it, and I'm glad.
Yep.
Like it's a thank you for the discussion. Thank you all for listening. Kit, thank you for
Yeah.
being a friend. I appreciate you. Had a great time last week.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
At Broken Compass, there's a free plug. And in
Great tiki
fact,
bar in
great
Burbank,
tiki
guys.
bar
Tiki bar in
and
Burbank. If you're in LA.
yeah, and my good and Christy.
Yep.
We get
Who
a
we might
like
bring on. We're gonna have her on a
yeah.
couple times because
Oh, it would
she's
be
got a
so
lot of
fun.
great insight. Yeah.
And we will if I'm to see the movie, it would be with her in an IMAX. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if
All
you want to
right.
see it again, don't wait. Don't wait for TV or
Well, we'll see.
Max.
We'll see. All right.
You're
Thanks
funny.
everyone
All right.
for tuning in. We'll
Thank you,
see you guys soon.
everyone. You're awesome. Bye.